Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and boy, this is going to be the most interesting review I'm going to give today, and this is the review for The Killing of a Sacred Deer. And I saw this with my mom, and that wasn't a good idea. She hated it. And also, there's some really uncomfortable moments, but I was pretty fascinated by this film, and it did what it was supposed to do. It has some flaws. When the trailers came out for The Lobster, Yorgos Lanthimos' last film, I was so excited for that film, and I loved it. Loved it for 2/3 of it, and the third act kind of was a bit iffy for me. This film is also flawed. It has some things that I didn't like very much about it, but I was still so engrossed, and this film's not going to leave me for a long time. And one big thing I have to say is, and I've heard some other reviewers say this, but the whole entire time that I was sitting watching this film, I'm like, Yorgos really likes Stanley Kubrick and The Shining. Because honestly, this felt like The Shining in terms of atmosphere and tone and camera work, and I'll get into all of those very shortly. But to start off, Yorgos Lanthimos' direction, the way that he strips out this story in the most uncomfortable way possible makes this film so much more effective than you would expect it to be. I have to say that it feels really slogging at moments during the first third of this film, but when this really hits its groove, this film keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you're on edge and creeped out and uncomfortable. You have no idea what the hell's going on, but honestly, in the back of my head, I was fearing the worst the whole entire time, because I'm like, something really, really bad's gonna happen. And boy, did something really, really bad happen in this film. I'm not going to go into any details about the story, because I went in blind, and I thought that it was made this film more shocking that way. And I felt like Lanthimos has a very good handle over the story and what he wanted out of it. Do I connect well with everything that he wanted out of it is the thing. The atmosphere in this film is so unnerving. I don't think I felt this unnerved watching a film since I watched The Shining. The Shining is my favorite horror thriller of all time, and it's because I felt on edge every single second of that film. Between the performance of Jack Nicholson and his unnerving portrayal of Jack Torrance, and the whole atmosphere brought together by Stanley Kubrick and his cinematographer, this film embodied that so much. One thing is, I didn't feel super connected or liked any of the characters really in this film, but just the pure happenstance of what goes on here and what you go through as an audience physically affects you during this film. And if it's not being connected emotionally with your characters, but if you can make your audience feel really harshly watching a film and put them on edge, you did something right. And Lanthimos definitely did that. Now I'm going to gush a little bit about, and be patient with me, Themios Bakatakis, who was the cinematographer for this film. Oh my god, the cinematography in this film. The tracking shots through corridors that are slightly elevated, high angles looking down behind characters, or low angles looking up at characters, and the camera work and the vast open spaces in certain scenes where it's just like, who would have thought to shoot this like this? And it's so unnerving and uncomfortable, and it creates an environment where it's like you don't know how you're supposed to feel because you're not used to seeing a film shot like this. But there's some gorgeous cinematography in this film. There's one particular scene where Colin Farrell's character is giving a presentation, and the very, very back of the room, he's far off in the front, but you just see this whole entire ballroom basically, and it's just breathtakingly gorgeous, and just the camera work is so unnerving and holds on, and the zooming in shots in this film where it's slowly but surely moving in and you don't know how long it's going to hold on is just, it really hits you. And the cinematography was amazing in this film. The writing by Yorgos Lanthimos and Efthimis Filippo, and sorry, very, very Greek names. And the writing in this film, this story, I'm not going to say anything about the story, but this was engrossing as hell and dark and really, 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 really messed up. And there's sequences in this film that, there were some sequences like, did this really need to be there? And it was there more for like making you feel uncomfortable, yeah. But overall, the story of this film is so harsh and like puts you to the grinder as an audience, and it does it in the best way possible in terms of making you horrified, because this experience, this story is horrifying. The characters in this film are all so, they're not very likable, but they all have depth to them and they have dimensions to them, and there's like dark sides to all of them, and it's fascinating to watch them and interacting. Then there's like the dialogue feels very stilted and awkward, and I have to say some of the moments felt very wooden to me, which I think that's what he was going for, but they took me out of the film personally. But overall, I thought the dialogue was it was important that some of these characters felt super awkward, and it felt awkward. And you can tell with the delivery of some of these lines, there's so much subtext to what they're trying to say and how awkwardly they're delivered. And there's some moments where it was so awkward it was really funny. And there's some of that dark humor that was in The Lobster. This isn't like a dark black comedy. This is a horror thriller, and it really grinds to you. But there are still a few moments where that kind of pops in a bit. And there's just one really awkward moment, and I just laughed. I thought that was really funny and so awkward, but it's like there's those moments to cut some tension, but overall the tension's not cut in this film, and you sit there and you sit through all of it, and it's really intense and you really feel it. And looking at what this film's trying to say, this film, it's basically ripping up, like say picking up a mattress or like a cushion on a couch and seeing all of the things that have been collecting under there and the dust and how dirty and gross it is. This lifts up that cushion on humanity, and you see a dark side to humanity and a dark, twisted way of dealing with loss and revenge. And this movie really hits you there, and don't expect a happy ending to this film. Really don't. And it's dark, it's ominous, and the music, boy, the music. And I realized looking this up on IMDb, this wasn't original scores, so there wasn't a composer, but the music choices they picked for this film were unbelievably unnerving and atmospheric and creepy and jarring, to the point where it's like, along with the music, just like in The Shining, this became such an atmospheric film that really, really unnerves you and hits you hard. And in terms of the acting, Colin Farrell does a really great job, and he has some of his own moments where he really gets to shine. And Nicole Kidman, whew, like, she doesn't have a whole lot to do, at least for the first half of the film, but when things get going, she really owns it and really shows it. And then the big star is Barry Coogan, who plays the young boy that in this film is making some kind of connection with Colin Farrell. And boy, is he unnerving and creepy and uncomfortable and awkward as hell and everything he needed to be. You go, Barry. You did a really good job. Now, my closing thoughts on this film: it is haunting and visceral experience that will probably never really leave you. And that's the kind of film this is. This is going to stick in you for a while, and you're going to have hard times forgetting it. And but in all the best ways. I'm going to give The Killing of a Sacred Deer an A minus.